In one of the most unexpected turns in British royal history, King George VI ascended the throne not through direct inheritance, but through the sudden and controversial abdication of his older brother, King Edward VIII. This moment, which shook the monarchy and the entire British Empire, would go on to redefine the role of the crown, set the tone for a new kind of kingship, and produce a legacy that would ultimately shape the reign of Queen Elizabeth II. Born Albert Frederick Arthur George in 1895, he was the second son of King George V and Queen Mary. As the younger brother to Edward, known then as David Albert, later George VI, never expected to wear the crown. He lived much of his early life in the shadow of his more charismatic and outgoing brother. Albert was shy, sensitive, and struggled with a stammer that made public speaking a daunting task. He served bravely in the Royal Navy during World War I, and later took on public duties with diligence, but he remained far from the center of public attention. When King George V died in 1936, Edward ascended the throne as King Edward VIII, but from the very beginning his reign was troubled. Edward was in love with an American woman named Wallis Simpson, a divorcee who was still legally married to her second husband at the time. The relationship sparked deep controversy. As the head of the Church of England, which did not allow remarriage after divorce while the ex-spouse was still alive, Edward found himself in an impossible situation. To marry Wallis and remain king would be seen as defying both church and government. Rather than end his relationship, Edward chose to abdicate the throne. On December 11, 1936, he addressed the nation in a live broadcast, explaining his decision to step down. "I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility without the help and support of the woman I love," he said. It was a shocking moment. The world watched as a king relinquished power for personal love, leaving the crown suddenly without its expected heir. That responsibility fell on Albert, who reluctantly became King George VI. It was a role he never wanted, but one he accepted out of a deep sense of duty. His first act as king was to take the regnal name George in honor of his father and to signal continuity and stability during a time of upheaval. The public, uncertain at first, quickly came to respect and admire their new monarch. Despite his stammer and quiet nature, King George VI rose to the occasion with strength and humility. His reign began during a time of great anxiety, but it would become one of the most defining periods in British history. Just 3 years into his kingship, World War II broke out. George VI became a symbol of national resilience, choosing to remain in London during the Blitz, refusing to flee with his family despite the dangers. He and Queen Elizabeth, later known as the Queen Mother, visited bombed areas, comforted the wounded, and stood shoulder to shoulder with the British people. His steady hand and presence gave the nation a sense of unity and courage during its darkest hours. The king's personal struggles were profound, but they made him relatable to the public. His speech difficulties became a metaphor for his perseverance. With the help of speech therapist Lionel Logue, George VI worked tirelessly to improve, delivering wartime addresses that stirred the nation and reinforced the dignity of the crown. He proved that leadership isn't about charisma, but about character. He ruled not with flamboyance, but with quiet resolve. King George VI's reign also oversaw the start of the transformation of the British Empire into the Commonwealth, a voluntary association of independent nations. Though the empire was declining, he managed this transition with grace, helping lay the foundation for a modern Britain that respected the sovereignty of its former colonies. His dedication to fairness, modesty, and moral clarity left a lasting impression. His unexpected death in 1952 at the age of 56 marked the end of a reign defined by integrity. His daughter, Princess Elizabeth, became Queen Elizabeth II, and she would carry forward the legacy of stability and duty that her father had modeled so profoundly. So what is the lesson from the story of King George VI? It is a powerful reminder that greatness is not always born from ambition. Sometimes it emerges from being thrust into a role you never asked for, but embracing it with honor. It teaches us that true leadership lies not in flamboyance, but in courage, consistency, and quiet strength. King George VI showed the world that vulnerability and determination can coexist, and that facing fear with resolve can inspire nations. If this story of unexpected responsibility, sacrifice, and leadership moved you or taught you something new, please like, comment your thoughts, and share this with others.